welcome everybody. We're very excited about today's event. This is Quick Hacks Building a No-Code e-commerce site. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker today, Max Mirho. He teaches entrepreneurship online through a live show called Entrepreneur. If you haven't checked it out, well, this is, we're gonna have some time today to learn a little bit more about what Entrepreneur is. But I'm really excited to have Max because he has really been a leader in regards to experimenting and building tiny startups every single week to give students and also everyone out there who's thinking about starting a new business a more realistic understanding of how entrepreneurship functions. So at the beginning of every event, we ask our speakers to tell us a little bit more about themselves and to really tell us one interesting fact that they will want to share before the session. So Max, without further ado, I want to hand it over to you to just introduce yourself and then get us started for today's session.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Hello, my name is Max. I run Entrepreneur. Yay. That's we went over that. Basically, a little bit more about me. I lived in Pittsburgh for 6 years. I recently moved to Chicago, went to Carnegie Mellon. I studied business, entrepreneurship, all sorts of things like that. And while I was studying entrepreneurship, I couldn't really find any stuff out there that actually taught how it realistically functioned on the internet, at least, especially when you search like #entrepreneur or anything like that on social media. You get a lot of craziness and a lot of BS, and it's just not helpful. And so I started experimenting, building little things on my own. People thought it was cool. I started publishing videos about it, and now I have a little online show about it, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But I teach entrepreneurship. That's my kind of shtick, and I run a few little small businesses. So this will be fun. I'm excited. I focus a lot on the no-code space in general. It's becoming a big thing. If you don't know what no-code is, we'll get into it. But I'm going to go pretty heavy on giving you tools that do a whole bunch of different things in case those tools might solve those problems you're having. So I'm going to be posting a lot of links in the chat for the tools that I'm recommending. And if you have any questions in the future, you can always message me on social media or over email, and I can send you those tools again. But be paying attention to the chat. I'm used to being on live streams. I run a little live show. So if you have any questions, you can either interrupt me over the microphone. I talk a little fast, though, so it might be difficult. So you can also totally yell at me in the chat box, and I will answer every single question I can get to. So, and I should be able to get to them all. So this will be fun. Yeehaw. Anything else before we get started, or should I jump right in?
Just jump right in.
Sweet. Sounds great. I am going to quickly share my screen. This is Shopify. We'll obviously be getting to that at some point, but we're probably going to be going over a lot of different tools. Okay, so I have everybody's beautiful faces up. I'm going to open the chat so I can see that. Okay, cool. Awesome. Little thing here. So, actually, now let me talk at you for a second just about no code before we jump into and I start showing you tools and a bunch of different crazy things. Basically, for those of you who don't know, no code, quote unquote, is think of like WordPress or Wix or things like that, right? There's little website builders that let you build cool things on the internet. Where previously, years ago, you needed to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all these fancy things in order to put anything on the internet, right? You need to know how all that worked. And Wix, if you've ever used something like Wix before, it's like the most blisteringly easy thing. You drag and drop a button, and then it says, hey, fill out the button information, and then you have a button on a website, and you can click publish, and it's done, right? Very, very easy. They've made it extremely simple. There are now hundreds of those tools to solve problems that people typically have. The biggest problem was, I can't build a website. Now there's like 80 tools that I know that help you build a website. Then there was things like building apps, right? People wanted to build web apps and mobile apps. And now there's like 50 tools to build those kinds of apps as well. E-commerce is another one of those really, really common problems that people wanted to get around. And you needed to know all sorts of fancy stuff about payment to make that happen in the past. But now the no-code space has been exploding, and they've made it incredibly easy to start something online. So quick that since we have I think an hour and a half, I'm going to be able to just spin up some really simple little online store in front of you that I can publish on the web. And that's going to take up like 10 to 15 minutes. So should be a lot of fun. but that's what no code is. It's just tools that let you do things you previously needed code to do. So I'm going to be giving you a lot of those tools. All right, cool. Now I'll share my screen. Cool. Let me pull up the chat again. Cool. We're good. Okay, awesome. So the biggest thing you've probably heard in e-commerce is Shopify. I've used Shopify a little bit. I've experimented with some of the stuff they do. The only thing that I think Shopify doesn't do well is full custom design stuff, right? So it's kind of like a Squarespace, and Squarespace is a little bit of customization. If you've ever used Squarespace, it's a website builder, but it mostly works off of templates, right? It's not something that you can really like. It's a little bit more difficult to custom build everything from scratch without actually knowing things like HTML, CSS. It's not a builder. It gives you templates to work off, which is fine. E-commerce it's an online store, right? And people expect a certain thing when they go to an online store, and those templates are going to be what people expect. So there's no shame in using a template. There's no problem with using a template. But if you do want to custom design something, I'm especially going to show you how to do that, because usually custom designing something is going to be a bit cheaper, or it can be a bit cheaper. You can have a lot more flexibility over what you want everything to look like, not just a color scheme, but like the entire structure and function of the website. And that could help generate, unique experiences. People might like your store a bit more. It's nice to do custom if you can, but we're not going to jump too deep into Shopify. Shopify is very self-explanatory. Let me actually see what the pricing is here, just for context. Yeah, it's priced relatively fine, right? $30 a month if you want a simple e-commerce store. It walks you through the process, and then you're done. So I'm not going to go too deep into that. It's just its own thing, and it sits there. What we're going to talk about more is if you want something like to start, right? Because for me, sometimes $30 a month, if I don't know what I'm doing, or jumping into like an $80 commitment, is a little bit more than I want, right? Especially if you're starting something and you don't know if people want what you're selling, right? So a lot of complications there. So I prefer to start really small. And one tool that I'm going to talk about today is Card. This is one of my favorite things on the internet. Card is basically like a Wix, right? Like any other website builder, you can build whatever you want on it. It's usually for simple one-page sites, but you can build multi-page sites if you spoof it. It's very, very simple. It's just build a thing, and we can attach a few other tools to it to make it so we can also sell things on that simple little page. So I'm going to show you actually how we're going to do that. We're going to use Card. We're going to build a simple little e-commerce store right now, just as a base example. We're going to use Card, and we're going to use a tool called Gumroad. Card does the website. It's just a thing on the internet. Gumroad is the payment button. It helps make little payment buttons that you can just pop anywhere. You can even put it in like an Instagram bio. It's a very, very accessible thing, and it just makes a tiny little storefront online where the product shows, and you click a button and you put in your credit information. So using those two simple tools, which are both free, we're gonna make an online store. Let's get to it. Any questions before I get started on just the basics of this? I made a silly little cat website like earlier yesterday. Dope. Awesome. Let's do this. I'm not going to use a template. I'm going to start from absolute blank, and it's going to look pretty silly because it's going to be from absolute zero, and it's going to be very, very simple. But you can use any of these templates, and they work great. Super Rare Product actually would be a good one to go with. The Card is free to start. I think you can build 3 free websites. This is the builder that we get. We have a little page element. We have a little text element. I'm going to add a text element. I'm going to add maybe an image for the product. I'm going to add, on the free tier, you can't use these 4. You would just use a button with a link if you were doing the free button. You really wanted to keep it all 100% absolutely free. I'm going to use an embed. Actually, I'm going to use a widget because it's a little bit nicer. And we're going to use a Gumroad widget. Sweet. Buy my thing. Smiley face for extra love. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to make this a title. So I'm going to increase the size a little bit. Let's say we're selling a skateboard. Let's say we made a custom skateboard that we think is really, really awesome, and we're going to sell a skateboard. The Super Skateboard. Awesome. Text. This board is made from, is indestructible. Maybe that's our competitive advantage. It's just a really, really strong skateboard. This board is indestructible. That is not how you spell indestructible. This board is indestructible. Made from titanium alloys and carbon fiber. We guarantee you'll never break it. Never break it. Smiley face. Wow, we already added a smiley face. Can't add too many of those. It's too affectionate. Super skateboard. A little bit more, and then let me go find. I think actually I deleted a skateboard image a little while ago, so I'm just gonna go use that. Get back to the wrong one. Bop, bop. And I click into the image, upload the image, go to my desktop, grab that skateboard really quick. Cute little image. You would just take a picture of your actual skateboard or something like that. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, cool. Now we have a little website. Looks silly, but it's cute. And we have a little payment button. So let's go set up that payment now. Let's go to my dashboard. I think I can go to products. New product. New product is Super Skateboard. And I'm going to charge $60 for it. Something like that, right? And I should also note that Gumroad isn't just for like classic little sales things. It works especially with digital products. So if you have like an ebook or something like that, it works beautifully because it'll just automatically download those after you sell them. But it also works totally fine with physical goods. So I'm going to turn on physical good because theoretically, I built these skateboards, have them in my garage, and I'm selling them online or something like that, right? But you can also do things like pre-orders if you want to, have people pay before it's ready, like a little Kickstarter-ish thing. And you can also do memberships. So let's say you have a private blog, right? Or a private video series on a website. That's still e-commerce. You're selling a thing online, right? But you can charge a membership if it's stuff that's consistently coming out, or if it's a wealth of information that people want access to consistently, or something like that, right? Or a tool. Maybe you're selling a tool online. But we're just selling skateboards, so we're just going to go with classic sales. Physical good, $60, Super Skateboard. Let's customize it. Super Skateboard. I'm going to use the same stuff that I used here. Same little writing bits for the description. Guarantee you'll never break it. Awesome. I'm going to add the same image as thumbnail. Image must be square. Whatever. We don't need a thumbnail. It's only for sharing the link. The cover, I will put this though. Looks cute. Super Skateboard. Call to action, buy this. Summary. It's fine. We could add additional details. I don't really want to. We're not going to be adding any content. I'm going to generate a unique license key per sale. It's just a good practice for future reference. $60. You can also allow customers to pay what they want. And that's usually for things like you're selling art, or you want something to be very accessible to people, or it's a digital product that you don't really care as much how many, and you just want people to kind of support you. It's interesting. And you can set like a minimum amount. Kind of cool. I've never seen people utilize that in a creative way, but I'm sure there's plenty of little things that you could do. Limit product sales. Let's say I only have 20 of these that I built. I want to make sure people don't buy more than 20. That's important. Allow customers to choose a quantity. If they want to buy more than one skateboard, that's fine. Probably should show the number of sales on your product page. Sure. Maybe, we can wait later. Oh yes, sorry, I forgot to post the little links in the chat. Card.co, thank you for pasting that. And then this is gumroad.com. There's the two tools that we're using right now. Thank you for correcting me on that. Okay, cool. Save changes. I'm going to go to checkout section. Full name is shown, increased conversion. You can do Google Pay, or you can put in information. Great. Receipts. Thanks so much. Your board will arrive in about 5 business days. Or if I'm selling a physical product, I would maybe go to the USPS or whoever, or FedEx or whoever else, and say, how long would it take me to ship this to most places? They'll tell you based on the size of the product you're shipping, and maybe a few other things, and then you can estimate it there, right? So people know. It's just good to have. Shipping information is required because we need to ship it. It's a physical product. Add shipping destinations. Let's say we're only shipping to the US and Europe. Alone, the shipping will cost $10. With others, it'll cost 20. And same thing here, 20, something like that. You would, again, talk to the whoever you're shipping through and account for exactly how much that would cost and just pop that in there. It's also add a little discount code. Maybe we're running some ads on the internet and we want to let people, use this little $10 off code, super, for $10 off as a little promotion, something like that. And we can just go back and raise the price $10. You can experiment. Sometimes people like having coupon codes to feel like they're getting a better deal. But honestly, a lot of the practice is just you set the price higher and then drop it with a coupon code to make people feel like that. It's very interesting. E-commerce gets a little bit weird like that, but you have the option to do whatever you like. So cool. Add a discount code field to purchase form. Yes. Discount code optional. Great. Super. Wonderful. I think we're good. Let's save the changes and let's publish it. Published. Awesome. Now there's two ways that we can share this. I can copy the URL. So I could go back into here and just create something like a button right here. Inside that button, I could just drop that URL and then it'll take them to a separate page where they will buy the stuff, right? That's one option. You would do that on the free version if you really wanted to spend $0 whatsoever at all. I happen to pay for card, so it lets me embed a Gumroad button itself, which is slightly nicer. Really doesn't matter, whatever works for you. But I'm going to grab the URL and I'm going to paste it into here and we're done. By the board. Let's say by the board. Awesome. Little button right there. Super skateboard. Sounds great. Maybe we could add like a little section for, product reviews. We could add a video that shows the board. We can do whatever we want, but this is just kind of a simple example. You can do basically anything you could ever imagine on card, as long as it's relatively simple. So a Q&A section, whatever. But let's just publish this. I'm going to click the little save icon. Super skateboard. Description, blah, blah, not super important. And then I'm going to publish to a .card.co URL. You can also publish your own custom domain. Let's say I have superskateboard.com or something like that. Click here, just pop in the DNS, works fine. But I'm going to publish to a .card.co URL. It works fine. Super skateboard. Oh, super skateboard. Who's Kate? Superskateboard.card.co. Available. Let's publish it. And we're done. View the site. This works now. This entire thing works. On my Gumroad account, I have when you're signing up for a Gumroad account, it'll ask you to put in your PayPal information or your bank information or whatever the heck else. And so when I click this button, it pops up a little thing right here. It's going to give me the little thing, 20 left. Great. Buy this. It'll pop this in. And when I click pay, I'll be charged $70 for shipping and everything else. I can also put in, super right here and discount code, right? I click pay, it's done. The money gets sent to my bank account. I have now been paid for my product, and then I go with my skateboard and I ship it, right? And if it's a digital product, then I'm completely done, right? I don't have to ship anything. It's just, it downloads to the person's machine and everything's ready. That's a simple online store. I can share this with you right now. I can send this to whoever I want. Sweet. Awesome. We just sold a little thing online. So that's the super, super simple version. Before we go on to anything like any more complex tools or anything like that, does anybody have any questions on that process in general? Because I did kind of walk through that pretty quickly.
I do have a question. Do you know what are the fees associated with, what is it called? Gumroad?
Gumroad, yes.
Yeah.
The
per transaction.
Yes. So I think the let me look it up again. Gumroad per transaction transaction fee. Can't remember exactly what it is. PayPal fees. Yes. Gumroad pricing. Oh, interesting. They changed this recently, actually. This is super interesting. So it depends. If you pay for their service, I think it automatically kicks you down. What are the fees? Starting out, yeah, so starting out, we take 9% plus a 30% transaction fee. Once you reach 10,000, it'll drop to 7%. And as you sell more things, it drops and drops and drops. Yeah, so it gives you a little baseline, but it's about 9% to start at absolute zero, right? There are other tools like this that I think don't charge as much. Let me actually see. That's interesting that they changed. That's a very new thing. They used to say like, you pay $10 a month and then you get 2.9% transaction fee, or it's 8% if you just want to dig it for free. That's usually the kind of typical thing. But let's see, store. This is my little list of no-code tools. Really simple store, really simple store, really simple store. Here we go. Here we go. So this is what it usually is. Aha, everything interesting. Everybody's going to the per transaction based thing. This is new. This is new like this month, I promise. This is cool. But there are other options. So let me toss this to you as well. This is really simple store. They charge like Gumroad used to, where it's $5 per month, right? And you get 30 cents plus 2.9% transaction fee, which is great, right? That's actually cheaper and better than Gumroad in most cases. So you may want to use really simple store unless you are very confident and you really like the UI of Gumroad. So sweet. Now we have a few options. I'm actually going to move this over towards Gumroad so we have the payment tools together. But yeah, great question. Sorry, went off on a little bit of a tangent there. But there are a few little fees, but it's percentage based usually. So cool. Any other questions before we skedaddle on to building more complex stuff? Sweet. Awesome. So that's payment. That's simple websites. I'm going to give you a couple of other tools that build more complex things now. This is Webflow. Webflow is wild. And Webflow, like Card, you saw me building Card. Card is like, whatever. I can build that really easily. It is free. It takes like, there's like maybe like a day learning curve, but after futzing around with it for a few hours, you're probably as good as I am, right? Not a very complicated tool. Webflow, however, I know entire agencies, actually agencies in Pittsburgh, that build entire websites, and all of the stuff that they build is using Webflow. Webflow is like a very, very high level tool for creating things. Like Wix is like Card is like level 0. Wix would be like level 1. Shopify would be like level 2. Like Wix is more custom. Shopify is level 2 just because it has a little bit more functionality. Webflow is like level 10. Like it's really, really cool with what you can do. And it took me about 2 weeks to learn realistically how to build stuff in Webflow. And I've never done web development before. It was like the first website tool that I tackled. It's complicated, but it's not hard once you get the hang of it. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, I'm gonna actually link Webflow for everybody. That's Webflow. I think it's like $30 a month to host a website, somewhere around there. It's priced like a full dang website tool. If you want to learn how to use Webflow, you can always go to university.webflow.com, which is a wonderful, wonderful place. And they just have a series of free videos and lessons and courses and all this sorts of different stuff to help you learn how to use the tool, because it is a bit complex sometimes. But beyond that, if you can learn how to use this, you can build enterprise level online stores. It's just wonderful. It integrates with everything else. It's just amazing. Let me actually do my dashboard. I built a really stupid little online store called Dead Startups. And I am terrible at design. It's going to become painfully obvious in a second. But it's a very simple little online store that is completely automated, and it sells products through Webflow. So just give it a second to heckin' load. Come on. So this is what it is. I took old logos that nobody really cares about anymore, where the domains or the trademarks have either expired or nobody's really doing anything with them. And I put them on t-shirts and I sold them through Webflow. And if we go into the little e-commerce section right here, you just set up your products. and you're good to go. It's a very, very simple thing. It took me, it's just like with Webflow, it took me a little bit of time to figure out exactly how it functions, but it works beautifully, and I can completely customize every little aspect of this. I can add a blog onto this. Webflow is actually really, really good with SEO if that's your marketing strategy. So that's really important to know, and I'll get into the marketing strategies a little bit later. But I was able to completely build this whole thing in like a weekend, having never built a full online store before, and it functioned beautifully. A few people bought from it. It's great. Cool, neat. That's fun. Webflow is probably going to be the best tool that I recommend for building more complex websites if you need to build them from scratch. They also have templates. They're fine to work off of in that kind of space. Great. Cool. Now we have a simple website tool. Theranos Tea is going to be hot this week. That's what I was there. I think that was the one that I got a random, I didn't really do any marketing for this. And I think the one like most recent sale that I got off of the thing was Theranos. Did something happen with Theranos this week specifically? I'm curious.
Elizabeth Holmes is on trial. Like her trial begins this week, or has begun this week.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. That would be hot. Yeah. That's fun. I like that. So yeah, just a fun little idea. And like, I shouldn't be doing this. Actually, Yik Yak is now a thing again. So I should probably take that out. Yik Yak is suddenly a thing again. I don't know if anybody used Yik Yak. It was not a thing for like years, and now it's suddenly a thing again. I'm very confused. I've never seen a startup do that before. Anyway, fun little example. Yay. I don't actually, I'm going to get into some of the deeper stuff around no code. I don't actually produce any of these shirts myself. I don't have any of these shirts. I bought one for myself. Here we go. JB just asked, yes. For t-shirts, you use a site like Redbubble to produce them. Also, how do you share the URL to your own website? How do I share the URL to my own website? Well, if you are on Webflow, you click the publish tab up here, and it's deadstartupshirts.com, right? And I don't have it published right now for a couple of reasons that I can't get into. I didn't get in trouble. It's possible that I could have gotten in trouble. I didn't get in trouble. There's just a few things going on. So it's not relevant right now. But yeah, Dead Startup Shirts, you publish it and then you share the little link. So I just attached it to a domain that I bought on GoDaddy or something. But great question. To answer your question deeper, do I use a site like Redbubble to produce them? No, but I use a similar service. That's actually, for those of you who don't know, things like Redbubble or TeePublic or these different services are little e-commerce things. Redbubble. I can type, but I screwed it up. This is Redbubble. Basically, you make designs. You're a designer. You make cool stuff. You pop it on Redbubble, right? You submit everything to Redbubble, you put it on a shirt, and now it's a thing. People can buy it on Redbubble. But since they do all the marketing, the percentage that you make per sale is like, it's something like 30 cents per shirt when the shirt is priced at like $20. Like it's some very, very small amounts, right? I haven't done this in a little while. I think they've updated a bit, so they may have different pricing options. You may be able to, sell it yourself and they ship it. I don't know. But I use a service called Printful, which is very similar, except they don't have the platform to do the marketing. It's just you. You do the marketing. It's you go for it. We're just going to sit back and watch you sell stuff. So I can design basically any product I want. It's not just t-shirts or anything else. Much like Redbubble, I can design like phone cases, backpacks, like jackets. I think there's like what is it? Anything you can imagine. Socks, swimsuits, like basically anything apparel. It's super, super fun. I have a bunch of really stupid product ideas that I've been making. I have a little entrepreneur hat that I made on Printful. It's just super, super easy to use. But Printful, the nice thing that I like about Printful is Printful has integrations. And Shopify is one of them, right? You can set up a Shopify store, integrate Printful, and Printful will not only help you design the shirt and get images for the shirt, but it will print the shirt for you. It will ship the shirt for you. It will do everything for you. It'll do returns. Like it's all completely done by them, and you collect however much you want, basically. I think they take like a set amount. So like for the cheapest shirt, I think it's like $8.50 per shirt plus the shipping cost, which is like $2.50. So overall, it's like $11. But if you price the shirt at $20 and you have total control over the price, you make $9 a shirt, right? if you price the shirt at $50, you make whatever the subtracted amount would be. I can't remember what I said initially. Printful is getting customer focused. Yes, exactly. Printful is amazing. I absolutely love Printful. And I really like the integration section. Let's note a couple of things. One of the things that I really like about Printful is, check this out, Gumroad is one of the integrations. So we click on Gumroad. So Printful is also free, by the way, totally free. So actually, using Printful, if I just quickly integrate it with Gumroad and Card, for instance, right? I can have a full online store that sells shirts. Like you click a button and the shirt is delivered to you. All of that totally for free. And I can make however much I want on it based on how well I do my marketing, right? But with a simple little online store with a free little tool like this, it's done, right? Like I think, what was let me see if I can go find, I saved this. Let me go see if I can find some dumb thing that I did. Print power was one little thing. QR code shirt. Yeah, this is a really, really silly idea. I never went anywhere with this, but I made like a QR code shirt that just says I'm an ad, and you walk around and people can scan it, and like the URL that it would go to would change every day. Silly idea, but I wanted to give it a shot. I haven't actually done any marketing for it yet. I have a bunch of, if you can't tell, my whole thing is building stuff and not doing anything with it. But it's a fun little idea, right? It's cute. Doug is cracking up over there. I'm glad you're enjoying it. But like all of that was for free. I did that whole little website for free. So Printful's great. And also for the Dead Startup t-shirts, if we'll look back here, integrations, Webflow is another one, right? So I just integrated it with Webflow, watched a couple of videos on how to make the integration happen, and it automatically connects stuff, right? So on my Printful account, I built all those shirts that you see here, right? That you see here, and just connected it, and now it's all available. Great, awesome. So if you're doing specifically apparel, this is good to know. It's a specific use case, but you can just automatically get that out and running. And I highly, highly recommend anybody that's selling apparel or merchandise or things like this to use something like Printful first. You can always outsource it completely later, but having somebody go and ship and create, like hiring a manufacturer to build these kinds of things is going to be vastly more expensive. You have no idea if people are going to buy it yet, unless you have like millions of dollars of marketing budget. You just want to test it first. And Printful /Card /Gumroad /whatever else you need to use, doing it for free is a really, really good idea to start out, right? It's just, it makes sense to at least give it a shot before you jump further down the rabbit hole and spend any money or time. That's my recommendation. But cool. Now we have a way to sell merchandise for free. Awesome. Now we're going to get a little bit deeper into the weeds for e-commerce in general. But going to stop for another 5 seconds. Are there any questions so far, or anything that anybody specifically wants to build that I can jump into? Because this is the basics. Everything else is going to be like deeper automation and a bunch of other crazy stuff. Maybe says super helpful. Thank you. May have to move my little shop, aspire to fund, off Redbubble, and to Printful. Thank you. Awesome. Heck yeah. I hope it's super useful. I would check both the pricing of Redbubble and Printful, because Redbubble might also have similar pricing. But I know that Printful integrates with a whole lot more than most things on the internet. I use Printful. I like it a lot. But Redbubble may just, yeah, they may hack you on pricing. But Printful, you can set it and control it entirely yourself. Which tools do you recommend if you have a constantly changing set of SKUs, such as used clothing shop? In that case, it would be important to minimize the time to add / remove each item. I like that question, Greg. That's a great, great question. If you have something like, let's say, a little online thrift store, right? I would probably, there's a couple of integrations you can set up. You're going to have a backend database, and a really accessible, easy backend database that controls the front end of your website, right? And there are plenty of no-code ways to do that. What I would probably do is I would probably, you know what? This actually might be a nice little place to jump to. I was going to get to this a little bit later, but your question, I think, makes sense here. This is Glide. And you can build a website, you can build web apps with this, but it's mainly for phone apps, but it's accessible in both ways. What Glide does is it builds an app, web or mobile, on a Google Sheets really, really quickly. And they say in like 5 minutes for free, and that's true. I built a really dumb little app, and like, I think I timed it on my stream. It was like 4 minutes and 3 seconds because I was like really jumping through it. But it lets you build very simple mobile and desktop apps off of a Google Sheet. Google Sheet is your backend, right? So the database where all the products and all the little items are shown is from Google Sheets. It just grabs that information and connects it over. And that's super nice because if you've ever used Google Sheets before, there's like a billion different automations that you can set up within Google Sheets, or just, go onto Google Sheets and quickly add or edit or change an item, right? And then it changes on the front end, on the actual app or website. So that's super cool. I'm going to show you how that works a little bit deeper. And actually, what did I just, here, this is where I was. You can create online stores here. I don't know if it integrates with things like shipping. There are probably automations you could do. We'll get into some of the automated stuff later. But you can collect payments. You can do everything you need through Glide. I think you have to add like a Stripe account, which is similar to PayPal. But that would probably solve part of your problem because Google Sheets is really, really easy to edit and you can set up automation. So if something happens, somebody just quickly submits a form, or when you connect it to your little maybe Square account. So whenever a Square account comes over, it checks the product ID, deletes the product ID in Google Sheets. There are ways you can set up automations like that. And I'll get into the automation kind of section of it a little bit later, but this might be super useful for you. So I'm gonna put this over, Glide apps. And there are a few other tools. If you don't like Google Sheets, there are like databases like Airtable. I love Airtable that do similar stuff on a deeper end. Heck yeah, great question. I hope that's helpful. And I'll get into some more and answer more questions in that kind of space a little bit later. Neat, sweet, awesome. Let's get into the automation section now, actually. With all these different tools, with things like Gumroad, with things like Card, with things like Webflow, right? All those different kinds of things. And especially with stuff like Glide, little app builders or some little front-end interfaces that you build. There are tools like Mesa and Zapier that make really, really crazy stuff possible. So Mesa is a bit more e-commerce specific. E-commerce automation platform exclusive to Shopify and Shopify Plus. So this is specifically for Shopify. If you have a Shopify store, it looks like this is actually the Airtable icon right here, and this is the Google Sheets icon right here. So it may be possible entirely to build a Shopify store using something like Mesa and have those databases as your backend. All done, all good, all wonderful, right? If you wanted something a bit more intense. Let's actually look at the integrations. I'm curious. Yep, Google Sheets. Let's see if we can keep track of data. This is product customer information is so vital. Save all your product stores, spreadsheets in one place. Create, edit, share document. Fully compatible with Microsoft Excel. Send important information just in Google Sheets automatically. We'll have to manually fill in spreadsheet with all the relevant Shopify store details. Line items to Google Sheet. Add Shopify customer to Google Sheet document. Row created. Yeah, it looks like you can, using something like Mesa, you can organize your backend entirely with something like Google Sheets. And you can also do it with other databases. So Mesa may be the solution if you have a Shopify store and you don't want to build something from scratch with like Glide, right? So there are more options. Sweet. Zapier is the big one. This is just kind of specific to e-commerce, but Zapier is like nuts. If you want to connect any app to any other app, and this could be useful a billion ways. Let's say my little dumb store that we just made, right? Super Skateboard, right? Made that on Gumroad, little Gumroad button, cute. That's all it is. And I sell a little skateboard. Let's go back to Zapier. Let's type in Gumroad, right? Gumroad, connect this app, Gumroad, to Gmail. To Gmail. Let's make his app. Let's see what we can do. Choose an event when a sale happens, right? Not when I make a new product, not when a cancellation happens, not when a refund happens, none of that. When a sale happens, when somebody buys my skateboard, what do I want? Let's continue. Choose an account. Do I already have Gumroad? Yes, I do. Continue. Product. Super Skateboard. Done. Test trigger. just to make sure it works. Couldn't find a sale. Okay, cool. So I would have to import like a base sale into Gumroad, but then it would be able to test the trigger. So let's skip the test. Cool, continue. Now let's go to Gmail. Let's hop into, let's say when somebody buys my skateboard, I want to make sure they're really, really happy with that skateboard, right? And I want to create a really nice, unique experience. So I'm going to send an email. When they do that, I'm going to choose my Gmail account. So now when a sale in Gumroad happens on Super Skateboard, I want to send it to the email that we found in Gumroad, because you automatically have to put in your email when you buy something on Gumroad. I want to CC me, so maxmirho@gmail.com. And then I want to put in the body, hey, or hey, full name. I just saw you bought a super skateboard, and I'm super excited for you. Smiley face. I created a informational video on how to best use the product, and what you're now able to do that a typical skateboard can't, right? Something like that. Something like that. And then I link, I don't know, www.youtube.com/whatever. Fun. But now they get a unique experience, right? That's super awesome for them. And now we're in touch with all of our customers because they just got an email from us. They're going to hopefully respond and be like, oh, thank you. It's super cool. I'm very excited to get my super skateboard, right? I could put a little email signature in there, whatever. I can continue. Great. Awesome. Now I'm going to, maybe I also want to send like something to Google Sheets. Maybe I want a list of all the people that have previously bought, and I just want a nice little database to make sure I know everybody that's bought and how many products that I have just in a little nice little database online. So I'm going to create a spreadsheet row as well, right? Continue. And then I could also, I could also have a little pushover notification. So I get a notification on my phone when I know somebody bought. Maybe I could also connect it to something like, is Deliver on here? No. I could connect it to my website actually. So let's say if we built on Webflow, right? I want to brag that somebody just bought one of my skateboards, right? So I can also create a live item, like a little blog article or a little item on Webflow that says, hey, John Doe just bought a skateboard in Milwaukee, right? Wherever the heck. And I collect that information on the sale on Gumroad. Now, when somebody buys on Gumroad, all of this happens automatically, completely. I don't touch anything. All of these automations, all of these emails, all the spreadsheet like importation, all the creation of like little elements on my website happens completely automatically. And I can gear and create a really awesome custom automated experience using something like Zapier with whatever apps or databases or backend that I'm using, which is awesome, right? Yeehaw. So that's wonderful. And it is also important to note that things like Square, so let's say you sell stuff in person, right? It doesn't have to be Gumroad, it doesn't have to be online. If you do sell stuff in person, you can still trigger automations from something like Square. So if you have an in-person little thrift store, when a customer is created because they bought something, you trigger a series of things to happen, right? Great, neat. Automations are crazy. You can get really deep into it. Any questions on that about what's possible and what you might want to do or specific use cases?
Max, can you add more than one trigger to that workflow? Like it looks like trigger is just the sale in Gumroad and the action is create customer, send an email. But could you have like could you add an additional trigger?
You might be able to add an additional trigger, but what I would probably do is just create a second zap. I would just create two different zaps that do different things based on different triggers. So if somebody popped in Gumroad or somebody, bought something via Webflow or somebody bought something via Square, it does the same thing, right? That's probably what I would do. Does that solve your problem, or are you worried you might run into any issues there?
No, I was just curious, and it probably creates additional dependencies if you have like this action funnel that everything is triggering the same thing. Was just curious what your thoughts were on sort of the automation workflow.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never thought about that as a use case. I'm sure there are tons, but I personally haven't had. No, like, let's say I create like a CRM, right, to keep in touch with my customers. I have that on a backend little Google Sheets database. If somebody buys from my thing, then I want, if somebody buys on my little Gumroad account, it imports it into Google Sheets, and now I can keep track of that customer. If I do little pop-up shops as well, I want to probably make a second Zap that connects to Square and does the same exact series of things. But you could probably jam that into one, but I don't know if Zapier allows for multiple triggers. That is very interesting. I'm sure there are use cases, but my solution would probably just be to create separate automations that end up with the same results, right? That trigger the same actions. I think it should solve the same problem, and that way it's probably a little bit easier to control, I would imagine.
Cool.
Good question.
Thanks.
Yeah. Rock on. Neat. So that's automation. Any other questions on that before we move on to a couple of other cool things you can add to a website to make it funky fresh, as they say? They do say that. Cool. Let's get funky fresh. So there's a few. I'm going to go into like marketing things or things that help increase conversions. These are just tools that are kind of fun or relevant. This is Deliver. And I have never personally used Deliver, but it's one of the few tools online that I've seen that's like making e-commerce a little bit more exciting. Let me pop this in the chat. Deliver with 2 R's. It basically, wherever you sell, if it's Shopify, if it's on Wish, if it's on eBay, I wonder if they have an Etsy integration. By the way, things like Printful totally integrate with things like Etsy. Like if you just sell like very unique items online or something like that. So Etsy is totally a way to sell stuff online if you want to just create a simple online store like that. But Deliver makes it so you ship stuff. If you have, let's say I have all my skateboards and I really, really want to offer my skateboards in like the most convenient possible way available, right? I send it all to Deliver. They charge me a little bit of money per item, right? Let's see. Weight. There's a cost calculator. Pricing your items with the cost calculator. There is a how long does it take to ship? Yep. There are little calculators online that says like how much it costs to like store something in our warehouses, but it's a warehousing service where you ship it, they take it, I give them all my 20 skateboards, and whenever somebody buys it, 2-day shipping, right? Amazing. So if I want to make that interaction more convenient and I want to be able to compete with things like Amazon or whoever else, or like bigger, larger enterprise companies, you can now do that, right? If you are willing to put a little bit more money into the offering. So I would especially recommend these if you're pricing something that's a little bit, higher price. So my skateboard might work fine. It's like a $60, and maybe I would charge $100 for that. I think that would fit perfectly with something like Deliver. But that allows you to compete with really large customers because now you can ship really quickly. Awesome. Good to know. We talked about Glide. Glide is great. There are ways to build apps online. Glide is kind of like the card of app builders. It's very, very simple, solves like a few little niche solutions, but it's not very complex, but you can fully customize it. There are other ways, like, is this it? Famous. Yes. So Famous essentially just takes your Shopify store and creates a very highly mobile experience. I don't know if anybody shops online pretty frequently here, but I have a few friends that shop really consistently online, and their favorite stores have apps. Like there's like a Nordstrom app, right? Where you get regular notifications. It tells you like there's a sale on this, right? Or whatever else. And you can create a cart. You have everything available there. You can store stuff in the cart and it'll tell you when there's like sales on. Like it's a whole dang new, very personalized shopping experience because you customized it a lot, right? Via your phone. So it's always available to you. that is, and they say increase sales up to 35% for your Shopify products with mobile shopping experiences. So there's a lot of potential if you sell, especially things like apparel and things that are more like daily relevant. Creating an online app, I wouldn't recommend this immediately. I would recommend this down the road after you've tested and experimented and people have started buying from you. But stuff like this is really, really awesome. I'm going to give you a few products for building online mobile experiences. So Famous is one, seems to be Shopify specific. Sandbox is another, Sandbox Commerce. Beautifully, fully customizable mobile apps for your store, so you can fully customize and build something completely. Integrates with Shopify. There's a few other stores that it jumps in with. I wonder if I build an app integrations. What are their integrations? Crypto commerce, Twitter, shoppable Instagrams. You can connect with Instagram. Pinterest is very interesting. That's kind of cool. You can do it with mail, like MailChimp. That's fun. So there's a bunch of different ways, but this is another tool. And then TapCart is probably like the big one, although it is like stupid expensive. It's like $250 a month. But it's like the big one in the space, right? Push notifications, store behavior, data. They collect all sorts of crazy data. You can set up automations internally to send notifications and sales and stuff like that. If you really want to get deep into it, this is the kind of stuff you would get to eventually, right? If you have a successful online store that you want to optimize like crazy, great. Couple more things, like two more things. This is a tool that I was recently introduced to. This is super fun. It's called Chipbot. Chipbot Nexus, for instance, is like, if you've ever seen like those little help buttons in the bottom right, usually it's like a little chat bot that pops up. I can totally go over some chat bots if you want to like include those. If customers go to your website and they have questions on what the heck is going on or what pricing might be, or if like stuff is coming back into if stuff will be back in stock soon, anything like that, or just to increase legitimacy, all that stuff can be really important because people want to buy from a legitimate, like if you go to a website and you don't trust it, you're not going to buy from it. So increasing trust is always important. And basically what Chipbot Nexus is it helps make support a lot easier. So I click this little help button down here, and suddenly all the different articles, all the different FAQs, a search bar appears, videos to kind of help things. It's just like a little tutorial, a little section of tutorials and questions to make sure everybody has their questions answered, right? And that can be really important and helpful for legitimacy. And also, if you're getting tons of support requests, it can help reduce the amount of time you spend on that. So that's cool. Chipbot's fun, and that's Nexus. Chipbot Pylons, it's a little video you can include in the bottom right corner of a screen, helps make it a little bit more human. So you click it, and then a very cute little boy pops up telling me all about how wonderful the store is. Helps make it a bit more personable, helps make it a bit more human, a bit nicer. That can be really, really nice, especially if your brand is really closely associated with that, right? Like something like Nordstrom is very big and corporate and everything like that. But if you have a really tiny little online store that sells really wholesome things, that personal connection and that like nice interaction on your website may be really, really important for your customers. So it's a good thing to know. And Chipbot is a few different little things. I'm not sure what Chipbot Interceptor does. I guess it's just little notifications on your website, which could also be cool. Like, hey, there's a current sale going on. That's fun. This is a little marketing thing. If you sell through things like Instagram or Facebook or social media platforms online, Chatfuel is kind of cool. There are tons of little automation tools like this. Basically, it just helps you create a chat bot and an automated way to interact with your customers and answer questions and collect sales via something like that. So somebody messages your account, hey, I'm looking for a vintage Polaroid. Do you have that in stock? You set that up on Chatfuel and it automatically responds without you doing anything. Hey, glad you asked. We have this many more in stock, right? Another way to kind of reduce the amount of time you spend interacting with customers if you have a ton of interaction, but I would probably do it by hand to start so you learn more about what your customers need. But it's good to know. Also a pretty cool tool. Sweet. Those were all the tools that I had to show initially. And we can totally dive deeper into any of those if anybody has any specific questions. Kind of gone over the basics, a little bit more of the advanced stuff down the road, how to automate stuff if you already have something and you want to make the interaction a bit easier, you want to switch tools, or you just want to collect and use data more effectively. We could go over things like a little bit more on marketing and how we could, use things like influencer marketing or social media. We could go over how to analyze data with Google Analytics or Google Search Console. We could go over SEO, stuff like that, if your website needs that, and that's a really critical marketing strategy for you. But that's all I had to talk about right now. I'd love to know if there's any questions. This has been fun so far. Thank you. This chapter will link directly to website inventory. It can be linked directly to the back end. Great question. Subdivision customer competition. Let's go further. 5 minutes. Let me check that for you. I have never personally used Chatfuel. I know a few people that have, but I haven't used it. I would assume there's some interaction because like the big thing that they push up front is this camera is currently out of stock, and the thing knows that, right? So I would assume it's pretty easy. I think what happens is you set up an integration between Instagram, right? Your online Instagram store and a backend. And I think Mesa would probably actually be really, really good for that because that's what it does, right? It's integrations for e-commerce. So you set up that integration so your backend is all connected, and then Chatfuel can see that from your Facebook or your Instagram or wherever else, right? I think the storefront that it connects to is your social media, and there's plenty of ways to connect that on the backend. So yes, it should know just fine exactly what's in stock and everything else. If that answers your question. It's a good question. It's very specific, but I'm confident it'll be able to do it. Recommend multi-channel inventory management. Interesting. So explain that a little bit more if you could. What do you mean by multi-channel inventory management? Like, are you getting sales from different platforms all at once? Is that what you kind of mean?
Yeah, exactly. So if I'm selling on like say Etsy, and then I have like a Squarespace account, and then I also vend at different events, like I'm using Trunk, but I'm just wondering like what your recommendations are for like multi-channel inventory management. Just especially if like, the business grows, just something a little bit more robust.
Great question. Hopefully this will solve your problem, but I would use a bit more intensive a backend database to kind of manage that. So we just talked about Google Sheets, right? And Google Sheets is just a sheet, right? Which works fine. But it's not like very intense in terms of how it like holds and understands data. So what I would probably use for something like that, where you have a bit more complex information going on, and most of the tools that we talked about also connect to this tool. It's called Airtable. I'm going to, actually, I'll just show you right here. Yeah, so this is my list of no-code tools, right? And I put this on Airtable, and I can create little buttons that do things. I can create little links. I can have little note sections. I can add URLs, whatever. I can do all this sorts of stuff. But let's say you're selling, like you said, in a couple of different places. And these are my products, for instance. Let's say these are my products. I'm going to add a section called Single Select. And I'm going to make this sale location, right? And then I'm going to add a few options. I'm going to say one was on my Shopify store. One was on in person, person pop up, and I'll say maybe I use Square to sell it there. And then maybe Instagram bio link, and maybe that was through like Gumroad. I don't know, something like that, right? Now, for any different little item, I can just say, okay, I sold this one in my Shopify store. Okay, well, in-person pop-up, great. And then I'm not going to be doing all that by hand. That would be ridiculous. But I can set up integrations in something like Zapier, right? So I create a Zap, and I would create multiple Zaps. If I get, if the sale happens through Square, it's going to add an item to Gumroad. So let's say it was, or not Gumroad, to Airtable. So Square, great. To continue, choose an event, new order, right? Awesome. Then I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go add it to Airtable. And when I add that row to Airtable, I'm going to create a record. I'm going to make sure it sets to the, let's choose the base. What is it? It's nerd marketing. Table is, where was it? students, professors. What was it called? I want to show how this would work specifically. Marketing potential sponsors. So I'll go here, I'll pop in potential sponsors. Great. So that's where it's going to happen. It's going to add a record there. And it's going to add, take care of some issues, set of action. Here we go. So now we would go to the store location, sale location. And in this case, it would be the new order from Square. But I would set it to be, if we started with Square, right? I would set it to be something like in-person pop-up Square, right? So now where it happens, whenever it happens via Square, that is collected and it is sorted based on where the actual location. I would set up like 3 different automations for those 3 different versions, right? If that makes sense. So it's be in-person Square or whatever it was, right? And then automatically it'll generate that little bit. Sweet, awesome. I hope that answers your question, but I would probably use a bit more complex of a backend database like this. And there are ways to connect these like Airtables to like Webflow or to Shopify or things like that. There are ways to make those integrations happen, but you're probably going to need to use that as opposed to like Google Sheets, which is just like stuff, right? You could also just label it with items. I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your question. That's probably the best thing that I can think of off the top of my head. Great question. Can Airtable link to a POS system? What is a POS system again? POS system. Point of sale. Okay, yeah. So as in like something like a Square or an online site? Yes, absolutely. I think I actually just said that a second ago before I answered your question. You can absolutely connect it to a thing like Shopify or to like even using something like Mesa, right? Like Mesa connects to Airtable and it's going to connect to your Shopify store or anything else. You can absolutely, just like you would use Google Sheets and all those examples we gave, you could absolutely use Airtable as the backend database for a point of sale system. It's a great question. You have any recommendations for collecting taxes? I have Squarespace and use TaxJar, but I'm wondering if there's more options. Collecting taxes. That's a really, really good point. I think almost every single e-commerce solution that I've worked with, at least the tools that I've showed here, has like a section that says, here's the tax, right? Here's the associated tax. In your state, wherever you're selling it from. I think Gumroad has a place. I can't remember. I've done it before. And I seem to remember putting that in there. I don't have a very specific answer for that, Katie, and I'm sorry. I'm sure there are specific tools for that, but I feel like if you're shipping a physical item, I feel like I've built online stores before that just have that as a little bar in there, like increase the price by this much to gather that amount for taxes, but that doesn't pay the taxes that are necessary. When it comes to financial stuff like that, I will admit completely, I am bad. So I am sorry, I don't specifically have an answer, but if you know a tool like TaxJar, I bet there's ways to like competitors to TaxJar. TaxJar, but I'm not going to be more helpful than Google, unfortunately. I apologize. Seems like there's a few things. Yeah, TaxJar alternatives. There's definitely going to be alternatives. I just don't have any experience with them. I appreciate the question though. Cool. Shopify store manages tax collection well. Awesome. That's good to know. I would expect Shopify has been around forever. That's what they do. So it would make sense that that's their thing. And I expect things like Webflow and others to do tax collection well as well. I seem to remember when I was setting up my Webflow store that it had that there. So, yeehaw. Yippee-ki-yay. Any other questions? Ooh, I'm so sore today. I barely worked out yesterday. I'm so sore. My body hurts. Cool. There are no other questions. This has been super fun. Thank you for letting me blab at you for an hour. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Max, before you go, I was actually curious to hear about sort of like some best practices that you have in regards to like SEO. So like you have this website, you know, you're working on maybe like some inventory, maybe some Airtable, just like some processing is, you know, sort of like what are some of the other things that you should look into as you start selling a few items?
Absolutely. Yeah. So SEO, for those of you who don't know, is search engine optimization. It's a marketing strategy. It's basically like I just typed into Google competitors to tax chart, right? And stuff popped up. In order to pop up on Google when somebody searches for like funny shirt or something like that, I mean, that's going to be a really hard thing to rank for, but like specific keywords, in order to rank for that, you have to have good SEO on your website. Basically, all that means is on your website, there are two things that really like implement in it. One, your website is built okay. Usually, if you're building it on these kind of no-code tools, it's going to be built fine. Two, you have a blog on your website. That's really where all of SEO comes from blogs. So you write articles, written content, about 1,000 words, 700 to 1,000 words for each article that answer questions people might have or talk about products that people might be searching for. So top 10 silly shirts that we released in 2021 is a really like common kind of article that you'll see because it has decent SEO. And if you write a bunch of different articles in a bunch of different places on specific keywords around maybe funny shirts, then eventually Google will be like, oh, okay, I'm looking at this website and I'm seeing a lot of funny shirt stuff. And they're going to start putting you somewhere accessible for people that are searching for funny shirts, right? But basically, it just means put a blog on your website. Last third thing is you want to have other websites linked to you. It's a little bit more of a kind of complex, deeper thing, but other places that are talking about funny shirts on the internet should also link to you, and you can work with those websites or those retailers or whoever else, and that helps. But generally, you're probably going to want to use Webflow. Webflow is a really, really good SEO function. Like I don't know anything about like specifically catering to SEO in terms of how you build an article. I just built stuff on my website and I have pretty solid SEO. I get a few hundred visits per like, I think like 100 visits per like week on my website. And I have like 3 articles up there. So Webflow is really, really good at SEO. You're probably going to have to build it on a very custom tool that's made for that if you want good SEO. But it's a marketing strategy. If being found on Google is the way that you want to sell your product, you're probably going to need to build something on Webflow, or maybe I think Shopify also probably is pretty good SEO because they've been around for so long and they've built the website like that. Or maybe something like WordPress if you can mentally and emotionally deal with it. I cannot. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it's a whole thing. But basically just start writing articles on your website. Yeehaw. Cool. Any other questions? Neat. Ben, thank you for putting the little links in my in the chat. The 3 up there is LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. My website is entrepreneur.blog or entrepreneur.com. I recently bought the domain name for too much money because it went on auction. And then Twitch is where I do all my live streams. If you want to come and hang out and watch me build dumb stuff, I talk about a whole bunch of other no-code tools. And then YouTube, I will find my YouTube channel because somebody asked. Give me a second. This should be it. I don't really have that many subscribers. I post a lot of little videos and occasionally recordings of my streams, but not too much else. But thanks. Link to recording. Anyway, somebody just asked me if there's a link to recording for this. I'm assuming the link to be, where will that be? Yeah, where will that be available?
Yeah, we will share it out with all the participants that joined us today. And we can also put together a list of all the links that Max shared and share that out with you as well.
Sweet. Awesome.
All right. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, last chance for questions before we skedoodle. This has been fun though. Thank you, everybody.
All righty. Well, if there aren't any more questions, then you have, a few more minutes to get through these links and start yourself. And just like, I think the first step will be just go through them and then figure out what you can build and how they work and if it works for you and, and your company and your website and whatever you want to do, I think after this I will probably want to start a side gig. So thank you, Max, for everything. I think you made things look a little bit easier, and I think it was helpful to go through all of the demos. And but yeah, I think I would recommend for folks to really just like dive into all of these links and just start yourself. Again, we will be sharing out a survey. Tell us how we did, what kind of stuff you want to see more of, what speakers, and also we will be sharing the recording for today's session. Again, thank you, Max, for joining us today, and connect with him, follow him, and continue learning. And I think, if there's anything that we, something to walk away with today is to really just like, get your hands dirty in regards to like figuring out how to do all of this e-commerce and then, launch already.